Good morning. Today I want to start our genetics section, and since we're not in school, I thought, well, I'll just use the PowerPoint I always use, and I will go through it with you. So as I go, there will be places along the way where we're going to stop, and then you can go access the worksheets that go with it, and hopefully you'll get a better understanding of what we're doing. At least we're going to try it, and we're going to see if it still works. So let's go. All right, so today we're going to talk about the basics of genetics, and then we're going to go from there. Gotta get the hang of this. Okay, so how does DNA make us unique? Well, it starts with this dude right here. This guy's name is Gregor Mendel. He is considered to be the father of genetics, and he was this monk who lived a long time ago, and his job was to teach stats at the local university and to provide the food for the monks. And so he grew pea plants, and these pea plants came in different varieties, and they had different things about them that he thought was really unique, and so he started to track how he could make the plant have what he wanted it to. So
in my opinion, you don't know peas from powder.
You don't know peas from powder, so it's all about peas, right? So the first thing he did is he looked at pea coloring. There was purple flowers on the plants or white flowers. The axial means that the flower was somewhere in the middle and the terminal was on the ends. The seeds came in yellow, which we don't see very often, or green, which is what we are normally seeing. They are round or wrinkled, inflated, constricted. Anyways, altogether that you can see there were 7 different traits. And luckily for Mendel, he didn't know anything about chromosomes or meiosis or any of that. He just knew he wanted purple flowers. So fortunately for him, these were all on separate chromosomes. So he looked at the traits of pea plants. He tried to determine the probability of what the offspring would look like based on what the parents had. I'm going to teach you how to do that. And then he looked at it because plants are kind of cool, and especially this pea plant. It can self-pollinate, so it can breed back to itself. And because it can do that, you can make what we call a pure plant. And then it can cross-pollinate. And if it cross-pollinates, that means it just pollinates a different plant so that you get a cross of the parents. Okay, so the first generation, the one that's pure, that has self-pollinated, and it's as clean as it's going to be, we call that the parent strand. That's the P1 generation. When the P1 generation is crossed with each other, then you get the F1 generation. Then we will cross the F1 generation to get the F2 generation. Sometimes I say, think of it as parents, grandchildren, and then great-grandchildren if you wanted to do it that way. Or you could do it the other direction, but yeah. So anyway, so if we're looking here, down here we would have a true breeding or a parent generation. So let me show you that right here. So this one would be a parent, and this one would be a parent, and we would call these true breeding parents. And then this offspring inside the boxes here, those would be the F1 generation. If we were to cross 2 of these, we would get the F2 generation. Okay. All right. So these are the 2 laws of segregation. I guess the music's not playing, but if you can hear them, the law of segregation is basically when we're talking about meiosis, and we're talking about those chromosomes, those homologous pairs separating during meiosis 1. There's no rhyme or reason on how they separate. They just separate. You know, the one goes one way, one goes the other. It doesn't necessarily mean all moms go to one thing and all dads go to the other. It's just a mixture. And they assort independently of one another. If you have blonde hair, it doesn't mean you're going to have blue eyes. If you have a tall plant, it doesn't mean it's going to have purple flowers. So there is segregation during meiosis and independent assortment when we're talking about what traits go together. Okay, so there are some terms we're going to use, and I want to make sure that you know what they are. So this top row here would be what we call dominant traits. So let me get my little pencil here. Okay, so these are dominant traits. Dominant traits are always indicated with a capital letter. All right. And then these down here are what we call recessive traits, and those are always indicated with a lowercase letter. So let's see, dominant trait. So we're going to start with the recessive trait. The recessive trait means that it is generally hidden by a dominant trait, unless there are two. So here's the deal. For every trait, you have to have two alleles. Okay, so two alleles. I'll teach you what an allele is here in a second. It's really hard to write with the mouse. So if it was recessive, it would be little d, and you would be able to see that it was wrinkled or green or whatever. Okay? So the next one, not really good at this maneuvering business. I'll have to practice. Okay, so this next one is not working.